skip the video. Oh, there we go. All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, there, Micah. Yeah, make sure I can hear everyone else too. Hey, everybody, welcome. Welcome. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook, I believe, as well. I want to welcome everybody to another Capital Gains Tax Solutions Mastermind Masterclass. We have this every Friday to give you an opportunity to learn about how to escape feeling trapped by capital gains tax or help your clients do the same when selling highly appreciated assets. We're really passionate about creating some freedom and unlocking freedom for you and your clients. It could be primary home, it could be a business, it could be cryptocurrency, it could be stock, it could be a partnership separation, it could be a number of different things. But we're here to talk about some of the biggest challenges people face when looking at the deferred sales trust today, and in particular, some of the biggest objections that we get from CPAs, from attorneys, from people learning about this for the first time. So we hope to give you some clarity and some confidence, and give you some inspiration to take some action today to get your deferred sales trust started. For those who don't know me, my name is Brett Swartz, and I'm founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And I'm joined by some amazing strategic alliances. Sometimes clients jump on here as well. And then people looking at this for the first time. If you're wondering, hey, how do I get a part of the Cool Kids Club? You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, where you can register to join us every single week live, bring your live questions, and we'll answer them here for you as best we can. Also, we're going to share some deal stories that are happening now. And then we typically some of the challenges that are going through these deal stories, so you can learn along the way and we can share our journey. I am joined by, I believe, the Jake Miller and the Pierce York. Are these gentlemen in the house today?
I am in the house. How are you?
There he is, the Jake Miller. Well, sir. Happy Good Friday too. How you doing?
Doing very, very well. How are you doing?
No, he's good.
Now we can hear you.
How about that?
I want to try that again.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. So let's start with the topic today. And Jake, this will be a good one. Remember last week we promised everybody that we would cover some of the top objections and questions that often come up, particularly from a legal perspective, right? But also CPAs have questions on returns and such. So, Jake, let's start with this one. And this is literally a copy and paste from an email that we received from a potential client using it, and some of the challenges some of the CPA was bringing up. Actually, no, this was a closed deal story. I'm sorry. Let me give you the context. This is a closed deal where he was sharing with a CPA group about using the DST, and the CPA group said, "Oh yeah, we know about that. Here are the reasons, you think that you shouldn't have used it, or maybe don't use it in the future." And the first one was this, Jake. It was pay the tax now. And he says it twice. Pay the taxes. The capital gains tax will never be this low again. And then he says, I've spoken to a few different accountants, and they all have said the same thing to me. Now, this particular deal was about $4.5 million of exit and about 30 to 35% of tax. So, Jake, what would you say to a CPA who is telling somebody, yeah, just pay your tax on basically a $5 million exit at about 35% with a zero basis? What would be your thought on that, Jake?
Yeah, we'd have a good long or short discussion on present value, future value of money. Essentially talk about the pie of what they have right now and how chopping it into small little pieces today inhibits its future growth greatly versus being able to use all of the pie today and seeing what you can make that become in the future. In fact, your rate of return on something that you chop up into small little pieces has to be substantially greater, and you have to put your assets at higher risk to have the same outcome if you didn't have to pay that tax now.
Yeah, it's a great way to say it. I'll add to that. Love all of that. It's the compounding rate of return of capital over any period of time. So let's assume for a couple of things that you don't need to spend it all on personal stuff right now. In other words, you can keep it deferred like an IRA or a 401k or even like a 1031. What's the time value of capital? How much can you earn over a given period of time? Let's say that time period, let's just pick 10 years. and you're happy to live off some of the interest payments, right? That's the cool thing with the deferred sales trust. You can live off those interest payments. And in the meantime, it can also grow if you were to defer those interest payments. And so the rule of 72 states that if I can earn 7% compounding over any period, over a 10-year period of time, I can double that amount of money. So in this scenario, there's 5 million approximately in the trust. He's deferring about, what's 35% of 5 million? Let me do it real fast on my calculator. You're looking at, $1.75 million of tax. Hypothetically, if he did not take any distributions from the trust and net of fees, 7% went in the trust, that 5 million would be 10 million in 10 years. Okay. So the question is, would you like to have 10 million in 10 years? Or would you like to have paid 1.75? And let's assume you earn the same return, outside of the trust. What would you have? Well, 1.75 million off of 5 million would be 3.25. So you're looking at 2 times 6.5 million, right? And so now it's even a bigger gap, 6.5 million in 10 years or 10 million. Now, with the trust, people do take payments from the trust, right? So another way to look at defining winning would be, let's live off that 7%. You put 5 million in today, let's live off 7% every year, net of fees. And at the end of 10 years, and what is that, by the way? 5 million at 7% is $350,000, right? And then you could still have the 5 million in there after 10 years. So that's another way to look at it versus using the same math. 5 million plus 175, 7% is 227. So that's an extra $122,000 per year. Now you could say, well, Jake, I'm not paying as much fees. That's true, right? There's some lag there. So you could add a little bit more percentage. So those are some of the ways. Jake, any feedback on that or thoughts?
No, I mean, it's just absolutely important time value of money and compound interest. Just as you're explaining, Brett, you're being very detailed about the entire process here, that literally the difference between having to pay the taxes now and not having to pay the taxes now is enormous. Literally, you could probably pay for somebody's retirement with the difference.
Yep. And that goes into the next big objection here. The initial setup fees are too much. Much of what is done by lawyers is boilerplate, just like the names and the accounts changed. Okay. This one is hysterical because I always find it's funny because we encourage them to come on the calls, and they have the perception, like literally, and all the years we've done this since 2009, I've been working with it. Every deal is different. Yes, there's an outcome that tends to be the same, but it's not boilerplate. It's the opposite of that. And it's like the drive-by media, Jake, right? They think something happened in a certain way and they go 100 miles an hour, and they may have read something on the internet. And I don't know how much this particular person has spent. I would, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we can bring him on. Maybe I can bring him on the mastermind. I can reach out to him and be like, hey, watch this. So, we totally just want to talk with you, right? Let's walk through this. Would you be open to coming on and having like a little mini discussion / debate? But they're not boilerplate. And even more than that, it's every deal is a little bit different. It could be S Corp, C Corp, LLC. It could be partnerships. It could be an investment real estate. It could be a primary home. It could be different escrow companies, different states, different brokers, different agents, different lenders. There could be debt over basis challenges. There could be different 1031 exchange accommodators. There's like probably at least 100, at least 250 variables that can move in a certain way. It's almost like saying, Jake, like, oh, ACL surgery on your knee, just boilerplate. You could just a couple cuts and this and that. And like, I mean, that's your body, right? But this is tax and it's serious, but it's not boilerplate. It's the opposite of that. By the way, I think the other proof in the pudding is there's not a lot of people doing this. It's very specialized. If it were so simple, everyone would be doing it. Jake, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you're absolutely correct. If it were so simple, everybody would be doing it. And just because somebody hasn't done it before, they don't have 100 hours of experience doing it, doesn't mean that it's not right or that it doesn't exist. After having helped hundreds of CPA firm owners across the country with various strategies, you come to find out that everybody has their own internal processes where, as a cost benefit analysis, if they literally don't help 100 other clients do the exact same thing, which, Brett, we're talking about a once in a lifetime transaction for a lot of people, right? a once in a lifetime transaction, or the biggest transaction they've ever had. Now take that into consideration and then understand that these CPA firm owners that I've coached and taught and trained and mentored, right? There's a cost benefit analysis. If they can't do the same thing for at least another 100 clients, they may not invest the time and the energy and the effort to do the due diligence and the homework and the research necessary to know something so once in a lifetime, if you understand what I'm saying. So sometimes, and a lot of these individuals, not everybody, some of these people reach out to a specialist, a subject matter expert on a thing that they haven't done for 100 other clients, right? But others don't. You have your naysayers out there. You have your individuals that, hey, if I'm not going to do this if I haven't done this already for 100 clients, I'm not going to do it for another 100 clients. That's just not something my office does.
I think that's so important to understand, right? It makes perfect sense. And I love how simple you put that. If I'm a CPA or a financial advisor and I've got 100, 200, 500 clients, but only 1%, are actually even looking at these big exits, right? Every X amount of years, what's my ROI on becoming the subject matter expert on it? It's very low, right? I'm making all the money over here. Not to say that they're not going to look out for you. And by the way, I don't want to paint the picture that all the CPAs are against us. In fact, we have more for us, but this is one was just in particular. I'd say, I feel like we have like a 95%, let's say, CPA adoption rate once they actually do come in and spend time with us, with the CPA and tax attorney, not just the people on the front as the trustee or the financial advisor, but really spend time with the team. In fact, Jake and I were on a big call this week, and CPA, and it was like you could see the aha moments like clicking, right? And he had heard it from Jake, and then he heard it from the tax attorney, and it just kept like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, wow, thank you so much. Like, it just takes a little bit more time. And sometimes too, CPAs only want to talk with the CPA or want to talk with the tax attorney, and that makes sense. And we're happy to do that. That's why I'm not the CPA nor tax attorney. Jake is a financial advisor who has trained and coached CPAs as a person who they were looking to as one to help research some of the top exit planning strategies. I think it was over 1,000 CPAs in the top 400 you were coaching. So the point is, have a team, do the due diligence, but we have found they actually join us. That leads into the next question. The yearly fees are of 2% is too much to pay for the service. Okay, so this is also interesting too, right? Because now it becomes, well, there's the initial one-time setup fee, about 1.5% on the first million, 1.25 on anything above that. So that's a one-time legal fee paid to the tax attorney. That covers lifetime audit defense. Then there's the ongoing fees on the net proceeds. So whatever net of closing costs. So if you had a $5 million exit, but you had $2 million of debt, $3 million hits the account. Well, that's the amount that what Jake Miller and I, we also work with Jake Carpenter. Jake Carpenter is also one of the financial advisors we work with. He's on the call as well. Welcome, Jake. He's out of Washington. But as we work together, it's about 1.5% to 2%, depending on how where the funds are invested, depending on the amount that's under the account. So the question becomes, Jake, how do we make this an investment and not an expense? What are the ROIs here? Because on the outset, someone might think that it's just the flat, I'm just deferring the tax. What are other ways to grow this, Jake, to help people and make this an investment, not an expense?
Absolutely. I don't know if Jake Carpenter wants to join from his car. It looks like he's driving at the moment. We got this Jake squared thing going on. And so, I don't want to put you on the spot if it's dangerous to call in from the car. But
Don't
anyway,
do it, Jake, just drive and smile. You just drive and smile. Jake Miller, you stick to that. I don't want to be a cause for that.
Very good. Well, anyway, how do we make this an investment rather than an expense? Well, first and foremost, we're saving how much in taxes? Like literally, the federal capital gains tax rate is 20%. The Medicare tax is 3.8. Plus, if you're in tax California, Brett, could be another 13.3, depending on the city and everything else inside of California, right? Or whatever other state income tax, because a lot of states, in fact, almost all states, do not recognize a more favorable capital gains tax rate. They just charge you normal state income tax, right? So a lot of times we're losing up to 40, sometimes 50% of this asset that you've grown over time. If there's not a lot of basis, just chopping big, huge chunks off to the various taxing agencies. And how do we take that expense and make it go to work for us? Literally, we tell the government, we say, hey, we know and understand that we've had these gains. We're going to defer it, hence the name deferred sales trust. We're acknowledging in a very transparent form and manner that, hey, this is something that we do owe to the government. But in the meantime, we're going to make good use of it now, and we're going to invest it in the meantime. And we do pay some attorney fees. In fact, sometimes in the first million at 1.5, and that 1.25 after that. Now that's a lot better than up to 40 to 50%. And that ensures lifetime auto protection, that ensures a lot of different things that allows us to reinvest the gross proceeds of the sales transaction, Brett, rather than cut it all up into tiny little pieces and sometimes losing up to half of the pie. If we're able to take the entire pie minus 1.5 to 1.25%, rather than just, giving everything up to taxes today, we now have the power of time back in our hands. In fact, you have David Young, who spoke on your show one time, Brad, on your mastermind, talking about how the power of time is what, as you're getting older, you start losing, right? And if you can put that power of time back in your hands with everything that we've talked about already on today's show, you're able to be a lot more conservative with the assets that are still in your hands and accomplish a lot more than you could if you had to pay taxes today.
So well said. Couldn't agree with you more. I want to add that there's multiple ways to make the DST an investment, not an expense, not just the tax deferral on the first part, but there's also income tax deferral. So for example, if you live in New York and you have you're in a high income tax state, you could sell an asset, defer the tax, and establish residency, let's say, of Florida. Then you can start taking income off the trust, and guess where your nexus is for the income tax would be Florida, right? So you might delay for 6 or 12 months or 24 months from the trust. And in the meantime, it's growing and compounding and building inside of the trust until you establish residency, let's say in a Florida, Nevada, Texas, whatever. Same thing with California. You can move, and that is a great way to get some initial income tax deferral and even get into a state which is a lower bracket, which, by the way, is happening right now. A lot of people moving to Tennessee, moving to Florida, Texas, Carolinas, just more tax-friendly states. So that's a good way. The second one, another way would be new depreciation schedules, okay? Or let's imagine you don't even have a depreciation schedule, like you're selling a stock, or you're fully depreciated on a business or cryptocurrency or a primary home, which is not depreciable. Now you're looking at exiting into a trust of which you can partner with the trust, and that new LLC can go purchase real estate, and that depreciation, depending on how we structure it, can flow through to you. So we call this tax flow planning, not just cash flow, where you're increasing your ability to grow wealth by being tax efficient with a new depreciation schedule. And this right here can pay for it. Now, of course, do we have to follow the guidelines and the rules laid out for us? Yes. And does it take time and energy to do all that? Yes. And so all of a sudden you look at this, 2%, and you're going, wait, so I got a new depreciation schedule. I deferred, 30 to 50% in capital gains tax. I've got new income tax ability to move in a different state. Oh, by the way, Jake, I might eliminate the estate tax. Talk about that if you're selling a $100 million asset, and you might want to eliminate the 40% death tax. Jake, talk about that.
Absolutely. So there's a wonderful thing that we do here in the very beginning. When we utilize the deferred sales trust, we essentially put it in between you and the transaction. So you have this asset and there's a buyer. Rather than you selling it to the buyer, we have the trust sell it to the buyer, right? And we do something very important in this first step. We essentially move the asset out of your estate and we move it into the trust. We freeze the value of what is left in your estate. We exchange it with a promissory note first and foremost, right? We're able to do that so that while it's in the trust, it grows outside of your estate under normal circumstances. That's very important, especially since here at the end of 2025, so the beginning of 2026, a lot of the tax numbers reset. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2018 resets to a lot of the numbers that were in 2017. One of the numbers that resets is this exemption that we get on our estate. Right now, it's around 24 million married filing joint, and it's going to drop down to close to 12 or a little bit less. And it could even go down further because that's a number that our legislation decides on. And so if your assets in the future exceed that amount of that exemption, everything above and beyond that is subject to a 40% estate tax. So not only do you pay taxes on income, do you pay taxes on the stuff that you buy at the store, do you pay taxes on capital gains, but at the end of the day, should your estate exceed a certain number above and beyond the exemption, which again, that number is going to get cut in half, then you have an additional 40% on your assets when you pass away that then, it has to be paid before your assets get to go to your heirs.
Perfect. So let's walk through it live. We have live deals right now that are happening and that people are looking at us versus other strategies in considering this. And by the way, there's charitable ways to get stuff outside your taxable estate. So we can work with charitable ways, but there's some, there's ways you can buy a bunch of life insurance to try to offset the tax. We can still do that with the trust, and you can kind of get a double arbitrage there. And there's ways to do gifting where you're slowly gifting away percentage of your ownership over time, but you got to have a lot of kids and you got to have a lot of time. What's amazing about the deferred sales trust is in one day, in one transaction, does take a sale, we can move it outside of your taxable estate and call what's called the DST plus, and we eliminate that estate tax. Not only that, we eliminate all of the growth being outside your taxable estate. So let's imagine you were married and right now it's 24 million is the exemption, but just imagine you have a $124 million apartment complex, okay? And all of it's inside of your taxable estate. So you've got the 24 million exemption. You're like, no problem, Brett. We got that taken care of. Well, there's another $100 million. Imagine you own it free and clear to keep it simple. You could sell tomorrow for 124 million, move it all into the DST plus, and we're going to eliminate that 40% debt tax, which would have been 40% on 100 million. Okay, so right now we've eliminated that 40 million immediately. Now, let's say you're in your 50s, right? You're young and you're looking at taking this 124 million and moving that to $250 million or more, right? Every 10 years, let's say you can double it. You probably go to 80. You do the math there, probably like at $750 million. I mean, it's probably where we're at. Okay. That's all outside your taxable estate. We're done. We've eliminated it from the time you exit it. And so we know of no other strategy that can do that. So when you're looking at this 2%, you got to ask yourself, is this an investment, not an expense to me? If I can eliminate that 40% debt tax, if I can defer 25 to 50% capital gains tax, here's a little nuance here on that DST plus. As you receive payments back, it's not as favorable as a DST 1.0 in that you can do 100% interest payments. As you take payments, you do have to take partial interest and partial cap gains tax based upon your life expectancy. So it's not quite as efficient on the cap gains tax deferral part. However, let's imagine you bought some commercial real estate, you partnering with the trust, and you're able to cost seg and get some accelerated depreciation. Is there a chance where you can offset some of that cap gains tax in the given year? The answer is yes, right? So that's a cool way to be tax efficient with this. By the way, I wrote a book, and D. Jake Miller's in the book. It's called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. And I'm just going to read. And by the way, this thing, and you guys are going to be one of the first to hear this. Let me read this part of the chapter here first, right? Why do you need a capital gains tax solution? And there's just some quick bullet points. Defer 25 to 50% in capital gains tax, defer income tax, diversify wealth, dollar cost average, pay off debt, fund your next business venture, back up or save a failed 1031 exchange, new depreciation schedule with partnering with the trust. You can be entrepreneurial with the investment freedom through optimal timing. You can sell high and buy low. You can eliminate the 40% debt tax. You can gain diversification, liquidity. You can increase your cash flow. You can retire. These are just some of the reasons. Now, why not use it, right? Well, the sale of your asset does not qualify for the minimum size, 1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. You have an investment property you're selling and you found a good, solid 1031 property you exchange into. That makes sense for you. Do the 1031. We'll be that backup plan, right? We're happy to rescue if it fails, but go for 1031 if it works. You don't have an estate tax problem. Like you don't have a huge, as of 2026, 12 million married or 6 million single. And you don't have a low depreciation schedule on the property you're selling, or you're ready to spend all of your equity from the exit on your personal purchases, your primary home, your boat, your whatever, right? So those are just a few thoughts on why to use it, why not to use it. Jake, you want to add or subtract any of that?
No, very well said, Brett. A lot of different things. We do have some questions here in the chat. I don't know if it's time for that yet.
Let's take a few. Yeah, let's take a little break here, and then we can dive back into some of the other objections that were proposed. So yeah, go ahead. Why don't go ahead and kick that off, Micah? You want to just kind of moderate that? I think that'd be good for people to hear from you too.
Yeah, there was one question that came through about if the trust could be owned by their other living trust. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, Brett.
Sure, I'll jump on that, and Jay can add to it as well. So it's a great question. So what do you own, right? You own the promissory note, right? That is becoming the asset. So you've exchanged your ownership in, let's say, a piece of real estate, stock, cryptocurrency, the ownership of that asset, and you've exchanged that for a promissory note, which is an asset as well. But the trust itself is not owned by you, although on the DST Plus, your beneficiaries can be your children. Okay, but during your lifetime, you do not own it. The trust owes you the money, right? But you do own this promissory note. So what do you do with that? Well, you want to make sure you have what's called a living trust, okay, where you can have your assets inside of your living trust. So there's a big living trust, small little promissory note that goes into here. Now, this small promissory note could be $100 million promissory note, but this little promissory note is inside of your big living trust, of which you're the trustee on, right? Or however you set that up, so that when you pass away, it flows per your wishes of your living trust. Jake, would you add or subtract to that at all?
I'm going to say the same thing that you said, just in different words. I mean, essentially, you've got your family trust, your living trust. There's a lot of different kinds of trusts that accomplish different things, right? So you've got what you have for your family, right? And the promissory notes there. You have the deferred sales trust, which is for this transaction. The deferred sales trust takes this transaction that would normally be taxable in the current year and allows us to defer the recognition of that transaction to the future. Now, the nice thing is, kind of like a self-directed IRA or something of that nature, once the asset is in the trust, you can buy and sell and move it around and do a lot of different things. And it's kind of protected, right? You've continued to defer that first transaction of getting the asset into the trust to the future. And that's the purpose of the deferred sales trust. And of course, the asset that was exchanged in the beginning into the trust, now what's left inside of your family trust or your estate is the promissory note. That makes you the creditor. The creditor, now, Brett, we can have a whole discussion over creditorship, lendership, things of that nature, but that's probably a different question down the road.
It is actually coming up soon, but let's keep going with the next question, Mike, and make sure we get those questions answered.
Okay, so another question that came up was if this could be self-directed and kind of how those investments are handled.
Absolutely. Jake, why don't you start on this one, and then I'll add or subtract.
Yeah, so a self-directed IRA is a deferral vehicle. This is a different kind of deferral vehicle. Similar in nature in the fact that the outcome is the same, that you don't pay taxes until the assets come out of the IRA. Now, the nice thing is that for a deferred sales trust, you have to have an eligible transaction to get into it. Where there is an IRA of one kind or another, anybody can start an IRA. Some people can even do a rollover IRA or a Roth conversion with an IRA. Those are all different features of an IRA that anybody can do. However, not anybody can do a deferred sales trust. You have to first and foremost have an eligible transaction and have the proper future reinvestment objectives in order to be eligible for a deferred sales trust.
Good. And I'll answer the other part of the question, which is, can it be invested? I think that's what they were asking. Can it be invested into other types of like real estate and I guess self-directed is maybe they're asking about that. Like, so how are investments made? How are decisions made? And is it like checkbook control? Is it like, how does that work? Well, there's a trustee. Hi, that's me. If you haven't figured that out yet, Brett Swartz, a trustee for the deferred sales trust. So I would be the third party unrelated trustee, right? Who would perform those services. As well, I have to approve of all investments, but you as the note holder, right? As the creditor need to also approve of those investment decisions. So there's dual approval. And you're just like, well, why is there dual? I'd like to have a unilateral approval. Well, that makes it taxable. That shows ownership. The definition of ownership, if it's 100% ownership, would mean you have basically unilateral decision to make of that asset and what's going to be invested into. since you don't own the trust, you're a creditor, you do have lender approval, right? You do approve it. So it's dual approval. Now, what does that look like practically? You say, look, I want to start a business. I want to own some real estate. I want to invest into something that's a little bit outside of the traditional, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Can you joint venture partner with the trust and essentially get an outcome like a checkbook control? The answer is yes, right? If it's properly structured, though, you work out. Now, do I still need to look at those investments as a trustee? I do. I'm a friendly trustee, and that's part of our role is to make deals work, right, and still stay within the lines and the boundaries of the deferred sales trust. I think that answers that question. Michael, you want to go to the next one real fast?
Well, I just want to add.
Or you want to add? Go ahead, Jake. Yeah.
Yes, just one more piece. Sorry, it just came to my mind. One of the biggest differences, again, between the IRA and the deferred sales trust is that the deferred sales trust requires a team. The IRA is kind of like a do-it-yourself vehicle, or it can be, especially the self-directed IRA, where here we need for the deferral strategy, we're talking dollars that are much larger in nature, typically. And it does require a trustee. It does require the attorney, a very specialized attorney, right? A subject matter expert. And oftentimes for the navigating on the financial aspect of everything else, it requires somebody like me, right? Or Jay Carpenter here on the call to help financially direct the client's assets, or to assist the client to know what assets are now available to them that perhaps have never been available to them.
Exactly. Well said, Jake. Micah, next question, maybe?
Jake, would you maybe expand a little bit about creditor rights and what that means for them as a note holder? Maybe a little bit more. I think that would be good.
Very good. And a lot of times people, to help them understand this, we just talk about being a homeowner, right? Because a homeowner is a potential asset, a home that could be put into a DST and later sold, right? Regardless of the asset, it's really easy to understand owning a home and then the bank having a mortgage on the home. And at the end of the day, Micah, if we own a home and we forget or decline to make payments on the mortgage, what happens to the home that we own?
Goes back to the bank.
Goes back to the bank. So who in reality has greater rights, power, control, and authority over the home?
The bank.
So it's not ownership that has greater rights, power, and authority. It's actually the lendership or the creditor. All right. So we want to be in that situation, and we can with the deferred sales trust. Essentially, when we move an asset into the trust and then we become the promissory note holder, for tax purposes, for the deferral, it's important that there's a trustee over the trust that's not the original owner of the asset, right? Okay. Now, the original owner of the asset becomes the creditor. The creditor has to sign off on all assets inside of the trust, all asset and all money movements inside of the trust. So we put the asset in there to sell that asset. The prior owner, who is now the creditor, has to sign off.
Awesome.
The trustee can't do anything on his own behalf without the second signature or acknowledgement of the creditor, who has creditor rights or lendership rights over all the assets inside of the trust.
Perfect.
Great. So one other question we ought to hit before we move on is real estate can be sold via installments by the DST.
The question is, can real estate be sold using
by
the DST?
Installment sale by the DST.
I'm not sure. Maybe someone wants to unmute to clarify that question. I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Who's the question coming from?
That one's from Lou. Actually, Lou, you have some really good other questions as
Lou,
well.
you want to unmute yourself and say hello?
Hi. Okay, so you put a property in the trust.
Hi, Lou.
Okay.
Yes.
So then
Yeah, Lou, where are you calling from, by the way?
I'm Orange County, California.
Okay, great. Yeah, excellent. Keep going. So yeah, you put the property. Yeah, so you would sell an asset, and
then can
the proceeds would go into the trust.
And so can the trust sell via installment sale? And then
so let me back up another step. It sounds like you might have an asset to sell or you're considering selling, and are you implying that you would carry paper for the first buyer?
Correct.
Okay, great. And so now the question is, can an installment sale, maybe it's a better way to put it, can the installment sale be moved into a trust? Is that what you're asking?
Can the trust, the DST, sell the property via installment sale to seller finance?
Yeah. So let me tell you what it can do, and then make sure that maybe this answers the question. So I'll give you actually a deal we did. We did a deal in Monterey, and he sold the asset, and he moved some of the proceeds into the trust. Okay, this was like an Airbnb property near the beach, beautiful property, and at the same time, he also carried paper for the buyer. The first buyer. So basically, it's like the seller decided to carry paper for two parties. One party was the trust. The other party he carried back for the first buyer. Okay. And guess what happened? He assigned the interest of the promissory note to the trust. So as the payments come back from the first installment sale, if you will, it just rolls into the promissory note of the deferred sales trust. So I think that's what you're trying to get at here, but help me if I'm wrong, or maybe you can say what outcome you're trying to get to, Lou.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, to sell the property, be seller finance, installment sale, but yet avoid the capital gain.
Another example, and it's not a real estate example, Brett, but it's a business. Maybe we see this more often in business sales, but a business sale might happen in installments, and the deferred sales trust is able to receive those installments. So flipping things around a little bit, but also showing another example of how the deferred sales trust, based on the deal that was negotiated, sometimes, especially in a business, they want to keep the owner on, maybe 2 years, whatever, make a transition. And so there are installments that the deferred sales trust is able to receive and capture, which obviously is allowing us to defer the recognition of those installments to the future.
Perfect. Lou, did that answer your question? That's great, Jake. That's a great reminder. Did that answer your question, Lou?
Yeah, pretty much. And then how do you get money? Like if you, take dividends or whatever.
Would you like to kind of walk through it? I don't mind. I mean, it can be rough numbers, but are you selling a primary home or investment property?
Investment property. And
Okay.
so it goes into DST.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you have any debt on the property by any chance?
no.
Okay. And what's the approximate value?
800 or so.
Okay, 800,000. And how about your basis? Do you know what you bought it for minus improvements?
Well, probably around
Or plus improvements?
200 plus, and there's depreciation, but I haven't claimed all the depreciation. So then,
So you bought it for about 200. How much did you put into it?
probably 25.
Okay,
And-
25,000. Okay, and then how much did you depreciate? Approximately 50,000, 10,000.
Like 34,000.
Okay, we'll just use 25. Okay, say you did 25.
Yeah.
So the basis is 200,000. Did you 1031 into this, or did you buy it outright?
Buy it outright.
Okay, so we're going to take the 800,000, although minus commissions and closing costs. Let's just say that's 5%. So we're at 760. We're going to minus the 200,000. It's going to give us a gain of 560. Since you're in Taxafornia, you have state, federal, Obamacare plus some depreciation recapture. We'll use 40%, just as a rough number. Okay, that's 224,000 of liability, right? So if you were to do nothing and sell tomorrow, you would pay 224,000. So the first thing I'd ask you before we even get started, Lou, is on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like, oh, I can't imagine paying 224, and 1 being like, we're gonna be helping the government to pay down the debt. Where are you at on a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't want to do it.
8, 9, or 10? And that's all I'm looking here. Yeah.
10.
Okay, 10. Perfect. All right.
Absolutely.
So now we have a desire here, and I'm saying this for everyone who's listening, especially if you have clients out there. Like, if there's no desire and no need, there's no point in going to the rest of this, right? And so now the second question, Lou, is this: okay, what is your desired outcome look like besides deferring the tax, right? What does it look, feel? What do you see in the next year with that money? In this scenario, about $760,000. What does that look and feel like for you as far as cash flow, as far as your time and your energy? What's your desired outcome?
Well, that's why I want to do the installment sale, to get interest payments.
Got it. So cash flow, it sounds like cash flow is a desired outcome.
Yes.
Perfect. What else?
To be able to maybe get access to some of that money as it's coming in, to invest in other things, as well as, having some extra money.
Amazing. So it sounds like having some extra money coming in, or even access to extra money in case you want to have some fun, go spend it, travel or
Right.
whatever, just the ability to access the capital, have some liquidity. Am I hearing you? Am I way off?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So far, check. It's looking really great for you. Okay. Now what do those investments look like? Do you feel like it's real estate? Do you feel like it's stocks, bonds, mutual funds?
Oh, no. Real estate, promissory notes.
Okay. Sounds like you want to be entrepreneur and you want to lend on the money to maybe other people who want to buy real estate.
That and buy promissory, buy notes.
Buy notes, like buy first trust deeds, buy positions where they could potentially foreclose and you take it back.
Or just get the pay, get more interest payments from performing.
Good. Sounds like you're comfortable with lending and being kind of entrepreneur in that round.
Right.
Perfect. Yep, you can do that. You can start a lending business as long as you're not lending to family. Basically, you're lending to other investors, right? Okay, excellent. So the cash flow is about, or what else? Anything else you like there, or what? Like anything there that you're like, I also want this. You want liquidity. You want some diversification. You want to be able to lend with the money. Anything else there, Lou?
No.
Okay.
So.
All right. So that's the desired outcome. That's the need. The next thing we work through is showing you, and this would be the next part, Lou, for you to get comfortable with the know, like, and trust of me as a trustee, Jake Miller is a financial advisor, right? Let's just say that's a scenario. We're working together as a team, and understanding that the link between your outcome and us helping you to get there, being that I started out in commercial real estate at a very young age. I'm a broker now. I'm an investor. I also lend money through other groups as well. So that's my expertise to help you along the way. And then Jake Miller is a certified financial planner, not only financial planning, but investing. We got to keep some liquidity within this trust. We can't just put all of it into stuff that's illiquid or it'd take too long to get back. In fact, the fact that you said you wanted more liquidity maybe to do stuff, I would actually say we probably want to keep it more liquid than not liquid, just in case you want to go spend some of this money. So are you seeing the link between how Jake and I can help you to get to where you want to be right now? Lou, are you still there? Do you want to mute maybe?
Am I?
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably.
So far, I mean, given that we've only been talking for 5 minutes, right? Let's assume that's true, right? Then it's just simply it's a mathematical equation, right? So if we could help you to achieve tax deferral, selling the asset, getting the cash flow you're looking for, getting the options to be able to invest into lending, also having that liquidity and some of that diversification, is there any reason why you wouldn't say, "Yep, Brett, I'd like to at least take the next step to get going"? I think you're on mute again. Lou, are you still there? Or did I scare you off?
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Okay, good. All right. It's pretty intense. We are live right now, so you don't have to answer that question, but I'm doing this little bit of coaching too for everybody. So now back to your question. What question did you have, Lou? You said you had a question. Now that we have some of those fact pattern, what question do you have?
I don't know.
Oh, do we lose it? Who had the question? Micah, do you remember what her first question was in the beginning? Or anybody else?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Hold on, Pierce. I want to make sure we got the question answered first before we do that. Anyone remember? I don't remember the question was either. Maybe
it originally started out with like the installment sale question, but I can't remember how this one turned into this.
Yeah, that's okay. It'll come back. Pierce, go ahead. You're up.
So, in the clarifying question for Lou, the original question came down to can the trust do an installment sale for in conjunction with the trust? And I just wanted to ask, is there a specific reason why you wanted to do an installment sale on top of potentially doing the trust?
So sometimes, Pierce, and I don't want to answer for Lou, but sometimes it's just all part of the sell, especially if the buyer's not able to get financing. And so the seller might decide to carry part of it And so that's more common than not in businesses than it is in real estate, but sometimes in real estate as well.
Well, as we know, lending's really tightening up. And
That's
there are a
right.
lot of people, there are a lot of self-employed people that can afford a property, but yet they don't fit in the box.
I
Right.
think, Lou, it sounds like, or it feels like you're asking, can the trust investments lend to other people that may not fit inside the box? Can I go make loans? Can I do 12, 13, 15% loans with people who otherwise couldn't get a loan? I don't know, whatever percentage, that's reasonable, right? Is that what you were wondering about?
Well, yeah, well, no. Okay. To begin with, there's a property.
Right.
Okay. Put it into the DST.
You sell the asset to a third party buyer and the proceeds go into the DST. So that's, I think, where you're missing that piece, right? So we don't just put it into the DST just to put it there, like you put it into a living trust. We only transact if you have a third party buyer that's going to buy the house for $800,000. Okay. And in fact, we help you do that as well. We're brokers as well. We do A to Z to make sure nobody messes anything up. Okay.
I'm a
And
real
then
estate.
the net proceeds go into the trust. Now the question is, where and how can the funds be invested? You get that part there? I don't want you to miss that part. Are you on mute again, Lou?
So
Yep.
selling to the third party, we're selling via, I'm being the bank, or the DST is the bank, and taking in the monthly payments through the servicer.
So you might be crossing a little bit of the wires here. So let me walk it through again. So your house, let's imagine we list it tomorrow for $800,000. Okay. And it's in Orange County. Okay. And there's a buyer we find all cash for $800,000. And we're like, yes, we found the buyer. Fantastic. And we set up the trust inside of escrow and we basically weave it into the purchase and sale agreement. And what happens is, instead of taking the $800,000 directly and you paying the tax of about $240,000, what's going to happen is the trust is going to buy your asset for $800,000. It's going to ask you to carry back 100% financing, net of the closing costs, which would be the commissions, right? And any debt that you had on there or any transfer tax. I think you'd thank God it's not LA County, right? Where they have a 5% and you're not selling for more than 5 million. That's another story. It's for probably next week. Smoke clears, the buyer takes title to your property. They're living in the house. They're happy. They're gone. What's left is you have a promissory note for about $760,000 at about 8%. And the funds are sitting like at TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, typically, waiting to be invested. Any questions on what just happened there?
I get it. I understand.
Okay. Yeah. And I think the outcome is the key thing, Lou. Like, what's your outcome? What do you really want? And you go like, I want to defer my tax. Fantastic. I want to sell my house for the highest price and the best terms. Great. We can help you there. I want to diversify and keep some liquidity so I can spend it on stuff. We have you there. We can help you there. Next, I want to be able to invest I want the funds I feel comfortable investing into hard money lending, right? And doing some lending for others. I can, feel good about that. Fantastic. We can do that too. So any other questions on that, Lou? Are you good for right now?
I'm
liking
good.
the back. Okay, cool. I'm liking the background too. It's a cool background. So, all right, Jake Carpenter, I want to bring you in, brother. You've been quiet all day and a lot to take in. What are your thoughts on what we've been talking about? Or anything you want to add?
It's good stuff that we've worked on quite a few times over the years, but it's flexibility. It's the ability to take a tax bill, put it back in your pocket and create additional income and growth over time. Puts that time value of money, that time aspect back into your corner. And that's one thing that you said is we've got sellers, Brent, right, that are 60, 70 years old that giving up 30, 40% plus is taking away a lot of their time, and it's shifting wealth outside of their their control, that's going to affect them and their families. So it's really a mission to me. And I think all of us as a team, Jake Miller and you and every one of us, we come together as a team. We custom build these things for every seller. We weave them into their estate planning. We weave them into their financial plan. We come together as a team to engage with their current CPAs, attorneys, financial planners, and real estate brokers, and make sure that they get the outcome. I call it the magic wand effect, that they get the outcome that they really want. And it's custom built for them, no boilerplate stuff.
Jake, I couldn't say it better. And I love that that late night DJ voice. He's just cool, calm, collected. If you meet Jake, he's like, his shoulders are like really strong and broad. He's just like, if I already got a bar fight, like Jake would be the, Jake Miller and I we'd be there scrapping too, right? But like Jake Carpenter would be like, really, thank you, Jake. That was awesome. Yeah, and to that point, choose your control, right? I think that's sometimes the biggest objection for this is like, gosh, I got to give up this control. Like I got to have this team. There's a lot of people, like I'm used to doing everything myself and owning my own house or property or, business. And so it's like, well, you can choose your control. Like the control of the, let's say 30 to 50% of the tax can be in the control of the government, right? You can pay the tax. You can defer it into the deferred sales trust and you're going to give up some indirect control. You still have to prove everything, right? Or you can not take action and not accomplish, the time, energy, stress, financial freedom, cash flow freedom, diversification, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so I think the biggest thing for you, Lou, or anyone else who's listening is define really what you want, envision what you want the outcome to be, build the team, build the strategy. We want to help you do that. And then you unlock the freedom. And those are kind of the three pillars of capital gains tax solutions. That being said, we're almost out of time here. Who else has any other questions for us? We so appreciate everyone watching. If you want to take action, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also go to strategictaxsolutions.com. You can also go to somewhere with Jake Carpenter again. Where's Jake at again?
Jake Carpenter, is that who you're talking to?
Yeah. Where can we find you at, Jake?
All right. Yeah. You can find me Carpenter Capital, Jake Carpenter at Carpenter Capital. You can call me at 509-460-8700. That's 509-460-8700 to book an appointment.
Perfect. Micah and Jake, where can folks find you if they want to get in touch with you?
So yeah, you mentioned the website, strategictaxsolutions.com, or our 800 number, 800-773-1848.
Amazing. And then look for the book, people. It's happening. Okay. Yeah, I did say I was going to say this. Okay. So the book is coming out. Okay. So check this out. Okay. So you guys got the insider secrets because you're on this mastermind, you're watching this YouTube to the very end. There is a one-day amazing opportunity. Do you see that handsome guy over there? This is Jake Miller. It's probably hard to see because it's like, oh, there he is. Okay. Now you can see it. He's right there. Jake Miller. Okay. I have also in the book too. We got Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. But so here's the big announcement. On April the 20th, this thing is going live on Amazon. And you can download it for free. Oh my gosh, we're giving it away for free. Yes, the entire book for free. It's the Kindle version for free. Okay. Now, do we want you to buy the hardback? Of course. Or it's the paperback? Yes. Show your love, right? But you can share this with as many people as you want. You just, on April 20th, what do you got to do? You just have to simply go onto your Amazon account, log in, search building a capital gains tax exit plan, and then click on the free Kindle version. Okay. And that will give you a free Kindle version. Okay. So our goal is to share the love and also to share what's happening, which is helping people defer capital gains tax, unlock freedom, build wealth. That being said, we're out of time. Appreciate everyone out there. We'll talk to you again next week. We'll try to do better. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter. God bless everybody. We'll talk to everyone soon. Okay.